Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a special episode of The Monster's Den. We've got Davy Gallagher and Dan Brown in the house today. And you know what it usually means when the three of us are together, just the three of us, means we're going to be talking about some old shit, some classic horror. Today, we're going to do a quick little review of the brand new Blu-ray release of 1927's The Cat and the Canary. 1927, guys. It's a long ass time ago, right?
I watched the wrong one, Pete. I watched the Bob Hope one.
No. I watched the Red. The Redley Metzer one I watched, actually.
Yes, 1927, Paul Lenny.
Good year.
Universal Pictures, right? This is wow. So this, we're predating here Frankenstein, we're predating Dracula. This is right around the time. So, of course, this is a silent film. This is right around the time of Phantom of the Opera and all those other silent classics right before the talkies began. But this one has been, I remember, geez, Dan, you and I talking like probably 2 years ago about this film, and we were both lamenting the fact that it had not been released on Blu-ray yet.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here this is.
Here it is. And well, of course, not in the U.S. It's the European label, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Masters of Cinema, UK, yeah.
That's European. Leave it to the Europeans. Or as Davy says, the real world. Thank God for they're releasing stuff. I know.
No, it's just rights, isn't it? Sometimes things come out in America that we're desperate for, and that's why reach and free is being important. But as Pete says, and we'll do this as a discussion, we're not going to have a long episode today, folks. This is essentially the birth of what we know as Universal Horror. Carl Laemmle brings us this, the great producer at Universal, the head honcho. And yeah, we've had things like Phantom of the Opera already. We've had The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but those were presented as prestige pictures, as dramas, and oddly as musicals in the case of Phantom, because the score was sent out and it was quite a popular score at the time. This is the first identifiable, real Universal trying to do something that's a horror, quite horrific, but in line with the time, also add quite a lot of comedy to it as well.
Yeah, that whole concept of horror comedies, which we talk about all the time, in more recent days. And this is arguably the birth of that, right? The kind of like the dark house where things go bump in the night. You have a protagonist, you have some creepy guy roaming around the house, but then you've got all these side characters that are doing kind of silly things and whatnot. Damsel in distress. I mean, it's got everything, all the elements.
This started originally as a Broadway show, Cat and the Canary, and actually the starring role in the Broadway show was Henry Hull, who played the Werewolf of London.
Yeah. And
this was the craze. So although it wasn't, and The Bat also predated this film, and actually D.W. Griffith had made a comedy horror film called One Exciting Night, which they cast Henry Hull in. But although this came out in 27, people view this as the granddaddy or the one that legitimized or brought it forward, the haunted house comedy genre, which has always been fun, putting normal people or sometimes eccentric people in some rather precarious situations. My favorite sub-genre of all the 40s and 30s films. You just get a big kick. They're innocent. They're fun. Oh.
And to give people a rough idea of what it's about, there's not a massive plot. There's a family are called, an extended family are called to the estate of their now deceased uncle and told that one of them is going to inherit his fortune. But that person has to be proven to be sane because the uncle's fearful that his whole family are insane. And hidden name is in an envelope. All sorts of tropes ensue from there. Who's it going to be? Who's going to try and bump off the person who's revealed to be the heiress? That's not really a twist. That's revealed quite on that it is our main character. Because although she's not a famous actress to modern eyes, what's in Laura LaPlante, easy for me to say, was a major star at the time. She was one of Universal's real stars, but she would be completely what I like to call singing in the rain. She would be wiped out by sound film. She was a flapper girl, and she's not got the legacy of, say, a Clara Bow type, or obviously a Joan Crawford, who would continue into the sound era with Joan Crawford's case, or just that kind of iconic status that Clara Bow had. Laura LaPlante, she's good here, but I think she's upstaged by the cast around her. And what's interesting here is a lot of silent film in general is overplayed. Histrionics, big, you know, all this stuff. A lot of this is underplayed. And Paul Lenny brings a very European sensibility to it. Of course, he's a German, and this is his first American film. He's already made a masterpiece by this point, Waxworks. But this is his first American film, and he brings a European sensibility of bring it down. Don't just film a stage play, bring it down. And everybody's using sly looks, small glances. Yeah, there's a few over-the-top moments.
Especially her right there.
Yeah. The wonderful named Mamie Pleasant, who, as the name suggests, in the original stage play was an African-American stereotype, wisely dropped for the film version because they thought it would be offensive. So people that call things woke, they were doing that in 1927, folks. But yeah, I mean, I think Paul Lenny's greatest achievement here is the visuals. I mean, it's a good story. It's what and whatnot with good performances, but he makes a small haunted house. Well, it's not even, we know the twist, right? Come on. But a small haunted house, he makes that one set seem like it's a massive mansion, and we've got all sorts of rooms to film in. Instead of just everything going left to right, like stage play stuff, he makes things go to the background. He films that way, which wasn't done a lot because then you would lose perspective and things would be blurry in the background. And people think that it was really Orson Welles and Dan Toland with Citizen Kane who perfected the different lenses so you could be in the front ground and the background and still be in focus. Paul Lenny's doing it here in 1927. Wonderful filmmaking.
Yeah. This is a film that you can watch without any dialogue. It's that stylish. It's camera work, the curtains, the shadow. I mean, some of the scenes flashing, actually putting flashlights under the people's faces to ignite because he wanted the darkness in the back. And his whole thing about it was his fear of the dark. What's in the dark? But you've got this great comic relief and stuff by people like Creighton Hale, who started as a bit player in Universal. When he played the character of the Casper Milquetoast character with the glasses, wearing actually the same type of glasses that Henry Hull wore in the original stage play, that type round Harry Potter type glasses. He had this fleeting moment with stardom and started this whole thing with this haunted house comedies where these Casper Milquetoast type of feeble guys, even like Johnny Arthur, who was Darla's father in the Little Rascals show, very whiny voice. He played in The Monster with Lon Chaney.
He's also doing a very Harold Lloyd, I think.
Harold Lloyd as well, correct.
Yeah.
And so this is, but after that, he had a few more things, and he ended up becoming a character actor at Universal Studios in the 40s as an uncredited role, but he still wore glasses. He kept that same persona. It's kind of strange, but he had a pretty fulfilling career. But he does shine in this, playing kind of like the scared guy, nebbish.
So Pete, what do you think makes this? I mean, obviously, it's the progenitor of something we all love, the old dark house.
Old dark house. Yeah.
But what do you think makes this a particularly great example other than being just first?
Well, I think there's a certain charm to it being silent. And I sometimes, in watching it recently, I was kind of like, would this film have the same impact with sound? I don't know, because I think, like Dan said, you don't really miss the dialogue in here. And the atmosphere is terrific, and I like the fact that there's scares here, but it's not like, obviously they go for the kind of like the monster, which they show at the end of the movie. Of course, spoiler alert, it's a guy wearing a mask and whatnot, but they throw that in there. But I mean, how about the scene where she's in bed and the hands like come out of the back of the wall? I mean, that's so chilling. I mean, that's like as impactful as the scene where Chaney's mask gets ripped off in Phantom of the Opera, right?
And it's fascinating that at the time, I mean, you said spoiler alert, it turns out that the monster is just a person. So it's almost a Scooby-Doo type thing to modern audiences. But for the time, that was the trope, is the horror character, be it the bat, be it the gorilla, would always be revealed to be a person in disguise at the end. And what this film does is it still works as a mystery as well.
Exactly.
Everybody could feasibly have done it, and everybody has reason to do it. Whereas in this, for example, which is a piss take, okay, it's Bob Hope. Although I love Paula Goddard. I think she's one of the brilliant actresses in cinema. But this does things where, okay, that person couldn't have done the murder. They weren't, they were only away for 10 seconds, that kind of thing. Paul Lenny intentionally made sure that in this version, everybody was away for long enough to have committed the crime. Everybody could still have logically done it. So he's thinking of the audience being literal, but then he adds, again, that European sensibility of the 19s and then the 20s, bringing that kind of Dr. Caligari feel to it, where there's angular constructions. There's even a character in it who looks like Dr. Caligari, who's introduced very late on in the film. And it does have an expressionist feel throughout it. It's got a very German expressionist, but made American. And we start to see the birth of things like a character introduced, and the title card literally just says "ghosts," just like Scooby-Doo would do decades later.
Yep.
And the title cards are brilliant as well throughout. They aren't just little bits of dialogue. They, in one scene, have a character who is hiding under the bed and surprises two women, which, quite shocking. He's watching women undress in the 1920s. And instead of having the title card say, "Get out of our room, you pervert," or whatever, the title card just animates exclamation mark, and then explodes in a cloud of animation, which just basically she's saying, "Fuck off," she's having her rant. And that's his way of projecting that, which is just genius, absolute genius. Even the opening of the film, it's not a thing that would last past about 1940-ish, but they used to really worry about how films opened. A big thing, a lot of films would open with a book, for example, and then would go into the book, and that's how the film. In this, we see cobwebs, and then them getting swept away, and then that sweeping away of the cobwebs reveals the titles of the film. It's a gorgeous opening to the film as well.
Yeah. I think, at its core, like you said before, this is a very well-made whodunit. Mm-hmm. And because it's a silent film, you don't really have any audible clues that could give anything away. It does a very good job of hiding till the end exactly who is the bad guy in this, right? And then once it's revealed, you're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that kind of makes sense. I'm surprised by that. As opposed to, how many other whodunits by like 3/4 of the way through the film, you know exactly who it is. Not the case with this one. Did a very good job of that, I think.
Well, that's why being a silent film, with the facial features or the expressions on their face, when you're watching the 39 version, which I like, and it actually launched Bob Hope's career. It got him out of just being a supporting player in certain films or lackluster roles. The thing is, the actors in the 39 version, some of them, they're so angry, the way that, their actions and their verbal approach for everything they do, they start targeting who they may be. This one here, it kind of keeps you guessing, because it's nothing more than just facial gestures and lighting, and everybody looks sinister except for Creighton Hale, the hero of the film. So I think that's another reason why it works so well. And once again, it's all pantomime.
Yep.
And interesting, the use of cinematic effects here. I've talked already about things like the title card and the animation being used for the interstitials and whatnot. But of course, one of the great things of cinema that you couldn't do in a stage play is the close-up. And this film uses close-ups perfectly as well. Paul Lenny knows exactly how to film reaction shots. And he's chosen here not to cast anybody from the original stage production. That was quite often not done at this period. It was kind of, we're too legitimate for cinema. Nowadays, we'd think about it the other way around because they want the money. But the theatre actors were no, we're not doing that cinema stuff. It's not going to last. It will be wiped out in a few years, kind of thing. So they're still sticking to the stage and getting more money for it in a lot of cases. And one of the great things about this film is, again, just Paul Lenny's attention to detail throughout it. He was in line for about 5 different jobs. He died tragically just a year or 2 after this film came out. Along with Murnau, it's one of the great losses to cinema because, I mean, they both died just very, very shortly after this kind of era, and they could have revolutionized cinema on their own. They're both top-tier filmmakers. I mean, apparently Carl Laemmle he'd already got the rights by this point. He wanted Paul Lenny to do Dracula, with Conrad Veidt playing the Count. That could have been really interesting.
Had as Davy said, Lenny died in September of 1929. Mm-hmm. Chaney died in August of 1930. Murnau died in February of 31. Yeah. In all honesty, if they all lived an additional 5 years, the world of horror, we would have been in an alternate universe.
Yeah.
Lugosi would not have been Dracula, I agree. Conrad Veidt, and would not surprise me because Lenny would have probably brought Lara LaPlante along to play maybe Mina.
Yeah.
Or one of the characters. So they had their stock players, and we'd be looking at a totally different world where there were possibly no Karloffs or no Lugosis. And that's very, very strong because these were such powerful filmmakers, and Chaney himself with The Man of 1,000 Faces. And it's all been about making the money and getting the best product out for the little you can. And that's the thing with it. Totally alternate universe, bizarro world as compared to
just think about it, right?
Can you imagine? We've got Lon Chaney as Frankenstein's monster, or even the Doctor, and we've got Conrad Veidt as Dracula. I mean,
look at Conrad Veidt; he's perfect as Dracula.
It would have been wow. I'd love to see that reality. I mean, we can't really moan about getting Boris and Bella, but still fascinating to think about. And obviously,
maybe with AI we can do that one of these days, right? You never know.
I'm sure they're working on it already.
He may have ended up becoming a great character actor in Hollywood, or probably a star in another direction, more drama. Who knows?
Yeah.
But those 3 dying within 18 months totally threw wrenches in the gears and threw it a whole different direction. Which would be interesting fantasy football type thing to figure out.
Yeah, we want to go with that multiverse and see what that would have been like. But I mean, essentially, we're not doing this as a full episode, folks, and we also don't want to reveal because people won't have seen this. It's not going to be one of our massive episodes. But I think we can just recommend this as a brilliant whodunit, a brilliant example of silent cinema, and a very accessible film. It's not one of those. I mean, there's great silent film where I still wouldn't show it to friends who aren't into silent cinema because it's just too much for them. But this is very accessible. It's fun. It moves at a clip. There's never a wasted minute. Everything just moves right along. Very, very easy flowing film. Highly, highly recommended. And I just, again, check out Paul Lenny's other work, The Man Who Laughs and Waxworks, and The Last Command.
Again, the Last Laugh.
Last Laugh is Murnau. No. Yes, it is.
Laura LaPlante was in the last film. God damn it! I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know the one I mean anyway. But yeah, so there's only a few films to check out, and then a couple of German shorts and whatnot. But he showed that he was a master filmmaker, and what a tragic loss. Doesn't have much of a legacy now, so good on Eureka for giving him such a wonderful addition here. It looks great as well. It's a wonderful master. A great score. It's got a wonderful, exciting music score. It's not rinky-dink piano or anything. It's really an interesting, fun score that's been done for this edition by Robert Israel, synchronized by Gillian B. Anderson. I think she was in the X-Files. But yeah, wonderful.
Loads of special features on here.
Yeah. Two audio commentaries.
Yeah, Kim Newman and Stephen Jones. So yeah, people might know this one. They might know the Bob Hope one. And yeah, this is a fun knockabout, silly film, but it's nothing compared to this. It really is just nothing compared to this, which is, again, it's not quite Universal horror, but it's the DNA of Universal horror. It kind of starts here. And this is where Carl Laemmle starts to go, And that's when we get Universal horror.
Yep. Yeah, it's like, what else can we do here?
One last bit of interesting trivia that ties in with Todd Browning. Okay, I'm talking about Dracula, is the fellow who plays the groundskeeper that comes in. Is an actor by the name of George Siegerman. And George Siegerman, back in 1915, was out drinking with Todd Browning and a young New York actor by the name of Elmer Booth, who was actually one of D.W. Griffith's leading men. Handsome guy, kind of like a James Cagney type of delivery, at least in silent films. He went to California when D.W. Griffith went to California. He was going to be part of his main stars. Well, Browning, Siegerman, and Booth were out drinking one night, very foggy. They were driving, and they rammed into the back of a truck carrying large metal piping, in which Todd Browning suffered horribly for the rest of his life with pain. He literally got knocked all of his teeth out of jaw almost. George Siegerman also survived the crash. He was also damaged. But Elmer Booth, the best way to say about Elmer Booth is that he got hit directly in the face. It was like he was hit with a waffle iron, and he died instantly. But Todd Browning paid for that physically his entire life, which also added to his extra drinking for pain. And George Siegerman lived. He died shortly after the finishing of this film. He died in 1928. He was actually quite young. So that was just a bit of trivia. Todd Browning and the rest of the horror world.
It's actually quite interesting to watch the special features. Nowadays, people would, the thing about Poltergeist, it's a cursed film. About 5 of the people involved in this died within a couple of years of the film's completion. And it's blamed in, I think, 4 of the cases on blood poisoning, which is very specific.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it makes you wonder if that was some kind of euphemism that was used by coroners for, I don't know, bootleg gin that killed them, or syphilis, or something. Because all 4 of them to die of blood poisoning, including Paul Lenny. That's what killed him. Blood poisoning.
Penicillin. Penicillin. Yeah. So that's what kept it.
Yeah, they've bought like penicillin from Hadi Lime in The Third Man.
He didn't exactly have the best diet in the world either, but the tooth got him.
Yeah, an infected tooth, and he didn't go and get it checked out, and it killed him. So yeah, take that away, folks. Always visit your local dentist if you have tooth.
Very important, yes. Very important.
But the handful of films him and Murnau left behind can stand up to any number of portfolios of many directors on the few things they did make.
Yeah.
So go check it out, folks. Great looking, great sounding Blu-ray of The Cat and the Canary from 1927.
And
loads of special features. Case, and you got the reversible.
And kind of like different work if you want. Yeah, there you go. This is a keeper.
Yes. So if you've seen it, let us know what you think of this down in the comments below. If you haven't gone and checked this out and you like classic films from yesteryear that are slightly horror, loads of mystery, I think you'll dig this. So thanks for watching this special edition of The Monsters Den. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together. All the damn time. Video Nasties are coming up finally next week. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about what the hell the Video Nasties were. And we've each picked 3 films that we're going to briefly talk about and whether we think that they should have been banned for being nasty or not. So that's all coming up next week on The Monsters Den. Till then, for Davy Gallagher and Dan Brown, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching us here on The Monsters Den. See you next week, everybody. Take care.